Broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's very special webinar, What to Know to Prepare for Summer School and Fall Opening. We're going to give folks just another minute to file in, so just sit back. We'll be back in 60 seconds. Hello, everybody, and again, welcome to today's very special webinar. My name is Victor Rico. I'm the Director of Public Relations at Transfinder. It's my pleasure to welcome everyone to today's webinar. It's a partnership with NYAP, New York Association for Pupil Transportation. We've been doing these for well over a year now, and they've been just a lot of great information that I think has been very useful for you to bring back to your transportation offices. Today's topic is what to know to prepare for summer school and fall opening, and it's again part of our best practices series. And so without further ado, I'd like to welcome Transfinder's President and CEO Antonio Civitella. Tony, good morning, because we're in New York, so good morning.
It's good morning to everybody. Usually we do it in the afternoon, so this is actually I'm going to be correct saying good morning to everyone. Wow, we're definitely getting to the swing of things here. Graduation is upon us, so I'm sure some of you are preparing for graduation, different level. My son graduates tomorrow, 5th grade, so there's going to be a ceremony there, which is exciting. I could tell you the first day that we dropped off, my wife and I dropped off my son when he was at kindergarten, and I remember just driving away. We're all tearing up and all that stuff. There was some parents beeping behind us, they want to wave at us. I was like, I don't want to see anybody. We're all tearing up. So tomorrow he finished 5th grade. He's done with that elementary school. I'm sure I'm going to be, going to be teared up, but it's really of joy because it's all about, and I love those reasons. I love the graduation. It's really about those accomplishing major goals, right? These are goals, and whether it's elementary school, really high school, or even college. And last week I delivered a commencement speech. I'm not sure, I guess probably heard about this. It was and during the ceremony I talked about what to the new graduates, that the world needs more FIOs. You know what FIO stands for? Figure it out. And we don't need more of those critics that complain about things. We need people that solve problems. And I think you're all going to agree with me. And so I want to let all of the attendees know that Transfinder's FIO degree for the 2021 school year, guess what, goes to all of you, because you all had to figure things out. You obviously surpassed my expectation. And my expectation is very high on how we do things. And I tell you, just what we've done and over 15 months together with NYAP, I'm grateful that we can have a partnership and just really learn from each other. And I know so many of our clients, and also, some of our to-be clients in the future, they also got a lot of it. So I'm excited. Obviously, you graduate. What happens? Graduate. Now it's summer school, and we're going to hear today from the panelists on how much different this year summer school looks compared to other years, or last year, even if you probably didn't have summer school last year. But there's so much going on, so I can't wait to hear what the panelists are saying. And also, I want to learn from those best practices so we could teach our clients. So you're going to hear from people from, actually we have a wide range today, not just from New York State. We have Ohio, we have Florida, and obviously from New York State. And this is not just a New York State issue. It's across the country. I had some other conversation just the other day about, hey, why such a big boost? And I got an earful why so much. So I can't wait to hear from all of you. But lastly, just want to make sure everybody knows webinars do get recorded. So if you're trying to make some notes, like we're going too fast, you can always go back and listen and watch these webinars. It's off our best practices site off transfinder.com. So you can always get that. I'm really excited. I want to now introduce the NYAP Executive Director, Dave Christopher. Dave, thank you for everything you've done for New York and obviously working together. It's been so much fun. I can't wait to see you in a couple more weeks in Saratoga.
Yes, yes.
The state's lifted a lot of things. I don't know what that means for us in Saratoga, but I'm so excited. So, Dave, take it from here.
Well, good morning, Tony. And again, as always, thank you for the partnership. And as Rick said earlier, it's been over a year since we've been doing these webinars, and I want to thank you for stepping up and partnering with us. They're very valuable. I get good feedback on these all the time, so I appreciate what you folks have done, Tony, Rick, Bridget behind the scenes, and certainly all of the panelists who've participated through the years. And I always like to hear your opening words. FIO, I love it. Figure it out. That is such a valuable skill. And when people who can do that, when we're around people who can do that, they stand out, right? Versus the people who are always looking for, someone else to figure it out. And school transportation do that. People do that. I mean, it's so evident this year that school transportation professionals have figured it out with no playbook. There's been no playbook for what they've had to do this year. So my hat's off to all of you. So we have a great panel today. I'm really interested in hearing what folks from out of New York have to say in terms of summer and going forward. So I'll introduce the panelists: Dan Taylor from Columbia County, Florida, Bill Andexler from Akron Public Schools in Ohio, and of course the one and only Bill Harvey from Honeyard Falls Lima School District, all transportation professionals. And Rick DeRico, he's out there to coordinate the show. So Rick, take it over, and thank you all panelists for being here today. It should be a good hour.
Thanks so much, David. And yeah, we had a good prep call in advance of this, and we covered so much ground. Actually, Bill Harvey said before, he goes, "You should just tape this," because we always cover so much. And anyway, I know it'll go by fast, so I want to jump in real quick. I'm going to go and ask Dan Taylor, and then we have the Bills here, Bill Andexler and Bill Harvey. I was tempted to call you just Harvey for this episode, Bill, but I won't do that to you. Although I used to work in newsrooms, and they always used to call everybody by that. I was DeRico all the time. But anyway, we got the Bills here, and just if you could just start off a little bit about your role, and give us a sense of your district. How many students you're transporting? Is it rural? Is it urban? And then we'll dive deep into the actual topic here. So Dan, we'll start with you, then Bill Andexler, and then close up with Bill Harvey.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Dan Taylor, Director of Transportation from Columbia County Schools down in North Florida, just north of Gainesville. We're west of Jacksonville, right just south of the Georgia border. We have about 10,000 students that attend school. We transport right around 4,000 on a normal year. It was about 3,200, 3,300 during COVID. The numbers started coming up after the Christmas break. We're a real rural district. We have 14 school sites, 2 high schools, 2 middle schools. So we definitely face the same challenges every other district does, but we figure it out just like Tony said.
Very good. Bill Andexler.
All right. Good morning, everyone. I am Bill Andexler I'm the transportation coordinator at Akron Public Schools. We do have about 22,000 students in our district. We service probably about between 110 and 130 different school buildings. We service, we use the city bus, which is Metro for us. We have 100 of our own yellow buses, and we have 35 buses that we charter from a charter company. And on a normal year, we also have between 140 and 160 independent contracted van drivers to help us service everybody.
Great, thanks so much. And Mr. Harvey.
Yeah, I'm Bill Harvey with Honey Falls Lima Schools. We have about 1/10 of the kids that Bill and Drexler has in Akron, but probably almost equal number of headaches in different ways. So we're running about 50 buses, 140 square miles, all district owned and operated, and yeah, it's very. I remember our last podcast. Tony said that if you came off the field with a clean uniform, you didn't play hard, right? So I like his little sayings, you know, and the FIO is definitely, as Dave Christopher said, we all earned a degree in that this year for sure. So thanks to Tony for pointing that out.
Yeah, I was thinking, you guys, if we had tassels, we could move them to the other side now. But I guess you're never really done though. I want to go down the line, and then I'm going to ask Dave if you can kind of give me the statewide perspective on this as well. What does summer school look like for you this year? And I want not just about what does it look like compared to last year, if you even had summer school last year, and then what does it look like compared to like a pre-pandemic, school year? I just get a sense of. I know this year I hear it's bursting at the seams in some schools, and so I'm going to go in the opposite direction this time. I'm going to start with Bill Harvey, go to Bill and Exler, and then Dan. And then Dave, again, if you can give us a sense of what you're hearing on the ground in New York State, that'd be great. So Bill Harvey.
Yeah, our summer school this year looks very similar to what it did back in 2019. Our last year in 2020, as many schools did, we had next to nothing for summer programs. Quite honestly, I expected a heavier lift this year with summer school, thinking that we would have a lot of ground to make up with some kids, and there might be more extended programs. So we're serving kind of what we normally would. It is definitely a little bit larger than usual, and but the extra program, there are additional programs being offered on a parent transport type basis at one of our other school buildings. So and due to the density on the buses and things like that, this will be, for lack of a better term, somewhat of a normal summer for us.
Great, super. Bill and Exler.
Well, it's definitely not a normal summer in Akron, and my staff that possibly could be listening in right now, they would agree to that. Last year, it was very quiet around here because everybody was still trying to figure out what we were going to do and how we were going to transport students, and we're trying to get ready for the fall. So if we're going to go back to 2019, we are probably 8 times busier than we were back in 2019.
Wow.
And we're running anywhere from 40 to 50 buses a day, and they're going to go for 2 weeks, then I think they're off for a week, and then they're going for another 2 weeks, and then they're going off for a week, and another 2 weeks. It's considered like a third semester is what it is here. We could almost just say we're just continuing on school like it was a regular school day. And then what they have is, the reason why we're so busy is the government has dumped out that ESSER money, and they want to use that money up, the ESSER money, and there's certain things you can only use that for, and of course you can use it for the summer programs. So that is it's being used for that.
So how have you been able to, how has routing been, done? Are you creating teams that handle summer school and teams that handle fall? Or, have you had a hard time getting the drivers to handle that major influx of, students?
Well, yes, last year, we've probably 60% of my office switched over last year. So we brought in new routers. So the new routers upstairs have done a great job. They've had to learn from scratch. They had to learn on the go. And I'll speak for them. They are probably really tired of routing right now, because it seems like every week we have to create 40 different routes every week. Okay. So they've gotten a lot of practice. So they've gone from level 1, and they're at level 9 right now. So they're doing really well on that. And I apologize. What was the second part of that question?
well, we'll come back around talking about the fall and how you,
Okay.
and how about you, Dan? How is, what summer school look like for you?
Much like Mr. Harvey said, pre-2019, we have 7 buses running for summer school. They did talk about maybe spending some extra money and doing some catch-up programs with algebra boot camp and reading camp, but they decided to let the parents transport those children because they didn't have enough interest to utilize the buses. But it's pretty much back to normal down here in Florida as far as summer school goes.
Okay, great. Dave, what are you saying statewide?
Yeah, we're seeing quite a bit of variability depending on the school district. There's some school districts that are doing large programs to catch kids up who, fallen behind over the past year, and others that are, pretty much back to normal. I think it depends on, what the school did throughout the school year. We had some schools that essentially were all virtual through the year, so obviously they've got some probably catching up to do, and there's other schools that ran pretty normal programs depending on where you lived and what your local health folks approved of, so what your school plan was. So it varies. I think the transportation directors have been hustling the last few weeks to get ready for summer school because they really haven't, been given, a lot of notice in terms of what was going to happen. It's kind of, last minute in some cases. Probably the biggest issue I think they're facing this summer will be addressing the driver shortage that, needs to be resolved between now and September, when, we're all hoping for full in-class room situations all across our state. So I think that's the big if this summer for our folks. They'll figure out the summer school, no question. But
And how do you address that? I mean, Bill Andexler told us the other day, I think you said Columbus district was down 100 drivers. They have 500. I'm kind of remembering something like 500 drivers. They usually need 600 plus, so they're down a sizable number. How many of you are also dealing with a driver shortage, and how, or maybe some of you know how to solve that problem? And Dave, if you're hearing from a district that they've kind of solved this nut, what's that secret? What is the secret solution there? Anyone?
I don't think anyone's solved it. I think there are some districts that are in better situations than others because of maybe their some local things going on. I know I talked to someone this past weekend who had plenty of drivers, but they have a local contractor who was switching over, and he was able to grab some of those drivers. So it's depends on the district, but I think most school districts operators will tell you, private and public, that they've got a driver shortage issue.
I know that's been a big issue for you, and Bill Andexler, just jump in, and then Dan, I want to hear your solution to some of this that you've had. Go ahead, Bills.
So you're right, Rick. That was Columbus schools. Currently, they have 500 drivers. They need 100 more just to get through the summer, but to start up for the fall, they need a total of 800 drivers.
Oh my gosh!
So an additional 300. They need an additional 300. Here in Akron, we're down 18% on our drivers right now, and I have nobody in training right now.
Do you have other staff members that have to pick, teachers and others that have a CDL license that fill in the gaps?
Yeah, one of the requirements to be a router for my office here, which is, we call them transportation specialists. To be a router, you have to have a CDL license. Okay, and we can go into other reasons why, but the main thing is that they're bus drivers who are coming up to the office to route, so they know how to route, they know how to drive the bus, they know the area, so they should be good routers to help us get through the city. But yes, we do have to pull them out of the office. My manager has to drive, but they have to drive. Anybody that we can get. We are trying to recruit some of the child nutrition staff, the custodians, things like that, to try to help us out. Like a lot of districts do that. A lot of the district I used to work at, I used to have child nutrition people who would come up and custodians that would drive.
Yeah, so
Bill?
we're in the same boat. We're over 20% short, and the concern is that you know, it's really a very short window of time between now and the 1st of September, Labor Day, and realistically, we have to resolve to the fact that we may not close that gap entirely. So if you can't close the gap, what is a contingency plan to operate, right? So, you know, I met yesterday with the people in our central office and told them that really you have to have fewer kids or fewer buses, or load the buses heavier, or switch bell times, or move from a 2-tier to a 3-tier to reduce the resources, or some combination thereof. So I told them we don't have time to root for the good outcome where we get 10 drivers or 12 drivers, and then also root for failure, right? We got to root one way or the other. We need to make a decision and go down that path. So I think that you know, the driver shortage creates two different challenges for the directors. And number one is, you know, how do we meet the need, right? And what does the program look like? And we have hardly ever been in a situation where transportation drives bell times, right? It's usually like we're told this is what we're going to do, figure it out. We're getting to a point where it's like, I'm sorry, I can't do that, right? So what can you do becomes a question. So we have that to deal with. And then the other piece we have to deal with is, how do you recruit? How do you close the gap? There's a lot of very interesting things coming on. I wish I had the answer to that. If I did, I'd probably have my own webinar series and podcast. But it's tricky, and I think it's multi-pronged approach. I think the advertising, social media, developing a brand within your department, making sure your culture is understood. And we're doing all of those things. We're actually working right now on offering a finder's fee to our drivers, a very lucrative program where, you know, if you bring us a driver, you know, you get a monetary stipend. So, you know, I don't think there's any one silver bullet, but I think that the trick here is to hit all the bases and try and close the gap. And in the meantime, be realistic, understanding that you may have to either start with a shortage or reconfigure your program.
I want to get to the reconfiguring in a moment and talk about technology. So just remind me if I don't get back to you, but I do want to talk about that. And I want to go to Bill real quickly and Dexler, just because we talked a little bit about this healthcare initiative, or, you know, service that you provide that to the drivers. And I'm wondering, if you could explain it, but number two, do you think that helps make becoming a driver a little more attractive? Would that actually help in some of your recruitment? So just for the folks that maybe are not familiar, can you share a little bit about the healthcare incentive and tell me if that helps you in any way? And then Dan, I want to go to your solution as well. Go ahead, Bill.
Okay, about 2 years ago, maybe 3 years ago, our treasurer, Ryan Pendleton, came up with a program, and we have a dedicated medical staff just for our employees at Akron Public and their families. And what the goal is, and it's been working very well, is that we're trying to keep our staff from just going to the emergency room and paying those high deductibles and those out-of-pocket expenses. And a lot of times they would just go there just for a minor little thing. So about 3 years ago, they came up with this program, and we do have a medical. It's like a family doctor, and it's open. I think it's like 10 hours a day, something like that. And people can access them on the weekends. They can access them, you know, through telephone calls, and they get prescriptions and things like that. So what we want to do is we want to cut down on the emergency room visits. It cuts down on our insurance premium that the school has to pay, and it also helps out our staff. And we have, in the entire district of Akron, we have over 3,000 employees. So you figure multiply that by 2.5 with the family members, you know, so you're looking at like 7,000, 8,000 potential patients. It works very well for our staff that we have here. For the actual recruiting part of it, I have not seen that's something that's recruiting to draw potential drivers in. but it's good for our staff here.
Okay. The PR guy in me says promote that thing big time, and maybe you might get somebody that's
Sure.
that find that attractive. So Daniel, you said you try to duck this question because you're like knock on wood or something, but you guys haven't had really an experience of driver shortage. Why is that? Besides being in Florida.
Yeah, other than being in Florida, the great Sunshine State, the school board of the district a few years ago acknowledged the fact that they wanted to close that gap, the driver shortage. So they gradually increased the pay. We're just shy of $21 an hour, and they're guaranteed 4 hours or either 6 hours every day. So that definitely helps. I'm not sure where that will lead now that minimum wage is going to grow to $15 an hour by 2025 down here in Florida. The voters that voted yes on that last November, so we're going to have to grow with it, I would assume, to keep that gap. So we'll have something to throw out there as an incentive to come drive.
Okay. Dave, anything you want to add to this?
No, I think, as said earlier, this is a multi-pronged approach to continually work to recruit, offer different kinds of enhancements in your programs. I know you're going to move on to technology, and technology, I think, is going to play a big role in it. How do we keep the drivers safe and comfortable and, wanting to come to work? That's a lot of it. Money is a great motivator, but if you read the literature, it's work environment, manager, culture. That's number one for most people to come to a job and stay in a job. And when you think about who your biggest recruiters are, it's typically your bus drivers or your staff who talk to their friends and say, hey, come on over here. So you really have to look at that, the culture and the, how can technology enhance that, make it a more attractive job for potential drivers and staff, all staff.
And Rick, if I could say, what we've started here in Ohio is we've started, it's called like the task force for bus driver shortage. I've been working with Ohio Department of Education. We started this about 3 weeks ago, and we've got supervisors in all corners of the state of Ohio that are talking. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to work through to see if there's legislation that's blocking us, that's preventing things from drivers, potential drivers to be out there. So we're kind of looking through legislation, making sure things are not a roadblock for us. It's just started. We haven't really can't really evaluate it yet on what's going to happen, but at least we're talking in Ohio, and we're trying to get things moving.
Very good.
Rick, if I could, we just had a presentation by a school business official here in the Capital Region who's working on his PhD, and his PhD is an analysis of the driver shortage situation from the bus driver viewpoint. He's done a survey of over 1,000 school bus drivers and asked them, what keeps them in the seat? Why are they school bus drivers? What is it about the job that you like, et cetera? And probably one of the first of this kind that's been done from the driver perspective. These were actually surveys that went out to over 1,000 school bus drivers. And that data will be used to basically to write his dissertation and to provide our association with some good information from the driver perspective that we hope we'll be able to use to give to our members and others in terms of why people want to be bus drivers, what keeps them in the seat. So we find that this can be a pretty valuable study when it's done.
Yeah, I look forward to seeing the results. That sounds fascinating, really. Before I move on, I do want to get to the technology in a second. I don't know if this is a serious, so I want to make sure I say this, that if anybody is our attendees, obviously we can't hear you, but if you have a question, we'd love to have you just type it in the field there that's available to you, and we will get to you as soon as possible. And I did have a question here. I don't know if this is serious or not. I'm going to throw it out there, you guys. I haven't heard this, but his name is Rex, and he said there's a new issue that will there are new requirements for drivers starting in February 7th, 2022, that drivers will be required to take a theory class, and then they have to take a written test. Is that true? And
yeah, that's called the FMCSA. The federal government's got a program, and this almost went into effect like 2 or 3 years ago, but it got put off. And the current implementation date is February of 2022. And that's the entry level driver training regulations, and all CDL applicants across the country will have to comply. And it, you know, it's really meant, I believe, to provide a greater level of consistency in the training programs across the country, because that is really a federal license class that you can, you know, I can leave and go down to Daniel's district and retire down there and drive bus for him. My license is good. And then Bill can come down and we can hang out, and we could drive for Dan with that license. So, but is it going to be a little more complex? Yeah, and it's harder for the trainers. You know, somebody like Bill with a bigger operation, or Daniel, you know, our training departments vary in size, but we have to have a program that's certified, that meets the approval. We have to be an authorized training facility. And then when the trainee is ready, we feel ready for the road test, we have to send certification to the FMCSA, and they would authorize the road test in the whichever state it might be. So, Dan, am I missing much there?
No, you're pretty right on with that. The only thing is that in Ohio, unfortunately, you couldn't come to Ohio and drive for me under that certification, okay? Because Ohio they have their own certification. You have to get a certificate to drive a bus in Ohio, and you have to go through their program. But you're right. I'm glad whoever asked that question. Many supervisors don't know about this, that this is coming up. And for the supervisors, it's supposed to open up in June, and you're supposed to be able to self-certify your training program through the TPR. We've been working on it here in Ohio for about 6 months now. We have a plan in place in Ohio, and actually right now, as we're doing this, the group that I worked with, they're down in Columbus right now at a conference, the OAPT conference, and they're actually presenting this down in Columbus today. But yeah, he is correct. It is coming out. We feel in Ohio, again, I can't speak for other states, we already complete most of that's going to be required. And so all we have to do is we're going to have to fine tune it a little bit, just to meet some of the like weights and weights for bridges and stuff. We don't cover that really, but we have to cover that for this new program. We do the classroom part already. So that's the theory part. Then you have behind the wheel part. And we do that also too, with our training program that we have to be a bus driver in Ohio. So our goal was, we want to put everything together that we already do, put it down on paper, and then just fill in the blanks of the few little things that we're missing. Okay. But we'll know more as soon as they open up the site. They haven't opened up the site yet for the supervisors, and we just don't know that final piece yet. But it could be the same as the clearinghouse. The clearinghouse, many of you should be doing the clearinghouse, and that's where supervisors run a check on drivers about their driving history with any alcohol or drug and alcohol use. I mean, when that first was rolled out, it kind of flopped, but then it's gotten very good, after that. But we're thinking it's going to be about the same as the clearinghouse.
Okay. Good. All right. Well, thank you so much, Rex. Thanks for the question. Rhonda, I think you guys Bill, I think you just answered Rhonda's question. She wanted to know if there's going to be more clarification on this. She's been hearing about it, but doesn't have a whole lot of information. And it sounds like they're going to be releasing that through the clearinghouse.
No, not the clearinghouse. The clearinghouse is a separate part. It's a separate part of it. But they're telling us that they're supposed to open up the site for the TPR, because your site has to be certified. They're telling us that it's going to open up in June.
Okay.
But here it is, June 17th, and we haven't gotten the information yet. So it's probably going to get pushed back until August or September, and then just to reference this, if anybody's heard this, it's the old MAP 21. It's what it started out to be. It started out to be the MAP 21, and then and Bill Harvey's correct. They kind of stalled back that 2 years ago, and now they just brought it up this way now. So if you've heard of the MAP 21, this is what it is.
So long story short, Rhonda.
If I could add, Rick.
Yes.
I would just encourage anybody, any of the attendees, if you haven't seen this or need information on it, the FMCSA has a very good quality web page set up for this. And at this point in time, there are some different video orientation programs. So go search the FMCSA, look for entry-level driver training regulations, and then there's some informational material there. So I would encourage folks to check that out.
That's great.
I would even take that a step further and invite them to the NIAP annual conference on July 11th, where we'll have an operator who's got a program in place present, as well as a federal official who will be there to explain the program. So you're all welcome, even from Ohio.
Can people outside of New York attend that?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Very good.
Beautiful Saratoga Springs.
Rhonda says thank you to all of you, and I think hopefully, Rhonda, you also don't feel alone, that this is still evolving in terms of releasing that information. So we have the smartest panelists and the smartest attendees in the industry. All right, I want to go to a survey question that we have out for everybody. And while this question is up, and I want to make sure I highlight thank you to Bridget Moore, who runs the back end of this. She is just an awesome colleague. And we're going to go to technology and how to solve not just the shortage situation, the driver shortage situation, but just any other issues you may be having going into the fall. And so I'm going to go down the line with our panelists so we can be talking while this is on. So I'm going to read the question real quickly. Of these new student transportation technologies, which two are the most important to you? So if you could just take a minute and fill this out: GPS tracking, find your bus, student tracking attendance, turn-by-turn audio navigation, two-way communication parent app, or making paper forms electronic and digitizing. So take a second to fill that out. We'll go to the results after this. But I'm going to start with Dan, and just tell me a little bit about how technology has helped you solve, whether it's the driver shortage or any other issues that you're facing going into, like what do you use? What tools are you using? And then how are they working for you? And then I'll go to Bill Andexler and close it out with Bill Harvey.
Well, that's a great question, Rick. Back 6 years now was when we went with Transfinder. Before that, we had basically Excel spreadsheets that just had the stop locations, the bus stop locations on them for the drivers. And when we went with Transfinder, now we have, of course, most people probably know that you have turn-by-turn directions. And I believe that did help a little bit with the driver retention. Sometimes we'd get sub-drivers in here, we'd get them trained, spend all the hours, and then we'd hand them the route sheet for the route for them to drive that day, and they'd come back and be like, you know what, this isn't for me. I'm not going to sit here and try to read a paper. Of course, we all know that when we sub drive, we find the fifth grader or fourth grader and say, hey, show me the route most of the time. But I do hear a lot of times from the drivers that the turn-by-turn directions of the technology of Route Finder is definitely helped. We went to GPS 4 years ago. That has worked awesome with our office staff. When parents call, we can look and see exactly where the bus is at, and we can tell them 3 minutes, 2 minutes, 10 minutes, or however long it's going to be before they get home if they're running behind, or for pickup in the mornings. We did switch over to a new GPS company this summer. They're coming to install on Monday, so we hope that improves. And then so we can go on to the next step and get the Stop Finder app, so we can throw that technology into the parents' hands and try to decrease the number of phone calls that we get into the office staff. And then also the Info Finder. Word has gotten out over the last 5 or 6 years We've sent flyers home and all that good stuff. So whenever school gets ready to roll around, they know that they can log into the website and look up their bus information at any time, so they don't have to call and bombard us with phone calls.
Very good. And can you say who your GPS?
Sure. We're going with Zonar.
Very good. So, and we have a partnership with them, so that should be pretty seamless.
Yeah,
Dan, is that
looking forward to
electronic? Dan, is that electronic right left turns on an iPad or a electronic device or something?
No, sir.
Or is it paper?
We haven't went to electronic yet. We're still doing paper. We do have a 5-year goal plan to hopefully get those on the tablet within the next 5 years. We're trying to budget for it now.
Great. Bill, Andexler, so how about you? Technology you're using, how it's helped you with the driver shortage, but also just in general, I'm dealing with, the heavy lift of these constantly changing, even pandemic rules, and just preparing for the fall. What are you using? What's working for you?
Well, we've been using Route Finder Pro for 6 years here, and we were, up until about 3 weeks ago, we were hosting the software here at our district. There's 2 reasons why Transfinder is hosting it now, as of 2 weeks ago. The first reason is that during the pandemic, for my routers to access the computer to Route Finder Pro, they had a VPN into the system, into the network here, which, if anybody knows anything about VPN, that opens up security issues. So we started thinking about it then of having Transfinder hosting Route Finder Pro, which we completed that about 2 weeks ago. We're also looking into the future, because I'll read off all of my technology I have here, but I didn't want to throw any more technology on my routers, because we're going to be switching over to Route Finder Plus in December. We're going to start making that move and then do the cutover in the summer of 2022. We do have GPS on our buses, and our current contract is ending with the other company, and we did switch over to Zonar. And you're correct, Rick. Zonar and Transfinder are partners, and that was one of the reasons that we decided to go with Zonar. Basically, I'm putting all my apples into one basket, and if there's something that goes wrong, there's one phone call that I make, instead of calling my IT department or calling Route Finder or calling Transfinder or calling the other GPS company. I make one phone call and say, very nicely, I'll say, please fix this for me as soon as you can. But then we had Stop Finder, but we are going to implement it this year. And we have the expanded version of it, because with the GPS and the Zonar and everything. We do have Info Finder LE, which is very good with the buildings, with the contact with the buildings, and they can look up their own the buses and the routes and things. We do have Viewfinder. But the other thing that we're implementing this summer is Wayfinder. We're going to be able to use that to help take attendance, and also with the drivers, they can make the changes to the route right on the tablets. We are installing the tablets. We are also installing the coach cam that's the Zonar has, where it kind of rates the driver and kind of gives them a scorecard. During the pandemic, what really came about, other than, and we'll talk about this hopefully soon, keeping the buses clean, but technology-wise, a very simple program of just contact tracing. We had to trace our kids and where they sat if there was a breakout in the school. So they want to know, okay, the seating charts. They want to know where the kids sat on the buses, so they can kind of, the health department can go back and trace the kids and where they are at and who was contacted. So there's a company that we work with, it's Bus Conduct, and they have a seating chart, and Bus Conduct and Transfinder work very well together. We get a download from Route Finder Pro, and it puts it into conduct software, which has the seating charts. And all my buildings, principals, and my business manager, they can go into that software and they can see the seating charts, which made it very nice. So plus conduct is also a behavioral software program too, but the seating charts was a big thing. You wouldn't think that something so simple came to so important that they had to know those seating charts and where those kids sat. So that's pretty much our technology here that we've got going on. We got a lot going on this summer. There's a lot going on.
That's great. And before I forget, and I want to go to you, Bill Harvey, 1 second. You also, we had a little discussion the other day about you have your drivers actually create the seating chart, which and this will help. These technologies will help make that even easier for them. You think?
I'm sorry, you talking to me, Rick? I'm sorry.
Yeah, I think wasn't it you, Bill, that mentioned?
Yeah, with this program, it's again, bus conduct is the program, all one word. Yes, they can access it through their phones, and they can create the seating charts, or my staff upstairs can. They can sort them. They can put the kids in seats by what time they pick them up, because in Ohio, or because in Akron, we had to load kids a certain way. Okay, so first one on goes to the back of the bus. Last one's on at the front of the bus, and so we can populate that information in for the drivers just by their pickup times in the morning, and then in the afternoon it's reversed. It's the first one off. The last one off is the first one that gets on the bus, and the first one off is the last one that gets on the bus. So we're able to do that, and drivers can check it on their phone. They can see the seating charts. They can make the changes. So it's made our lives a lot easier. When you figure we've got 100 and some routes, 100 and some buses, it's not. And in Ohio, it's required that we have seating charts.
I was always the first one on the bus in the morning and the last one. And Dave Christopher has already cried me a river from hearing me share this every
week.
An hour and a half bus driver, and that means that if I'm the first one on, no, I guess I'd go to the back of the bus, but I would be in the front of the bus. I think in one of those scenarios, wouldn't I? And I would not like that because
you had to walk a mile up a hill to the bus stop.
Both ways.
Hey, Bill, have you seen a reduction in student management misconduct since you've implemented these programs?
Good question.
I wouldn't say I've seen a reduction. I would say that actually, I would see an increase in drivers filling out the bus conduct, because in the past, like most districts, the districts that I used to work at, it was filled out on a form, paper form. It was given to somebody. Eventually, it would get to the building principal who deals with it when they have time. It could be a day later, 2 days later, or sometimes that paper got lost and then it never did make it back, or a week later they would get to it and then they would deal with the discipline. Now you're a week later. This program is very simple. Drivers can do it on their phone, they can do it on a computer, and it sends emails out, and then within seconds, the building principal knows that they have a conduct to deal with. So that's how we're using software to help us out with that. And I'm the only one in the district that can delete. So I don't want that excuse to anybody say, oh, I accidentally deleted it. Yeah. So I'm the only one that can accidentally delete.
So it's improved communication between the driver and the person actually following up on the disciplinary action, which is good.
It is. It's great communication. Great communication. And the drivers do like it. The drivers do like it.
Very good. Mr. Harvey.
The technology used here at Niagara Falls, we're using Route Finder Pro. We haven't switched to Plus yet. I was kind of excited to do it and saw an opportunity to do it during the pandemic, but I was afraid the staff would lynch me because our hands were so full as it was. So I think that over the last 8 years, we've gone so heavily into the technology in our transportation department. We've reduced labor time and route prep and communication to parents. And we use the info finder, and we everything. Now we've got the parents, instead of calling us, they email us. So we use that. We use the LE so the schools can go in and enter field trips and manage field trips through that. So we've streamlined so much of it. The next steps for us are the turn-by-turn navigation wayfinder. And if I had to answer the survey question, the other thing I would have said was attendance. And I think that, it's very interesting what Bill has shared from Akron. But also when I called Transfinder to talk about wayfinder, I found out that, we could use that to have attendance and mark students on and off the bus. So my advice would be, you think you have one singular need, but if you commit down that path, you'll find out that there are peripheral technologies that can be deployed from that one move.
That's good. And
Rick, if I could just jump in back to the driver shortage thing. All of these things that you three professionals just talked about should be part of your driver recruitment process, because if people on the street knew about this, it may help you drive. This is modern technology used to keep the driver safe, the kids safe, be efficient. I believe that would help recruit people to the business, to the industry.
That's a really good point.
Yeah.
A really good point, especially when you get maybe you start getting a younger demographic too.
Sure.
That likes the technology.
The fact that the driver can access their phone app and deal with a student disciplinary action, that's a very powerful thing for a driver to be able to do.
Yeah.
And Bill and Dexler, referring to one phone call, there's an expression in the industry that says one throat to choke. But I felt that was a little too graphic, so I kind of started using the expression one back to pat. You want to call one person, say, great job. You can just spread it out to everybody else, and we're doing a great job. But it is nice to have one point of contact. I know most people who sign up with Transfinder solutions, they get one point of contact who kind of walks them through that, and then other team members will hop on. But it's nice to have that one point of contact. Hey, Bridget, can you bring up the results to the poll? Do you want to share them with us so they can hear a better voice than mine? Walk us through the results here, Bridget.
Hopefully it's sharing for everybody to see, but it looks like top new technologies are GPS tracking to find your bus, and student tracking attendance. And but right behind it are turn-by-turn audio navigation, are all important, and the two-way communication parent app, and going electronic with your forms.
Very good. Thanks so much, Bridget. Appreciate it. I think Bill and Dexler mentioned this. We do need to get to this topic. There's a bunch of topics, I think you guys mentioned the other day. You kind of see face masks kind of going away. Sounds like we just talked a little bit about, and correct me if I'm wrong, and then you did just talk about also attendance being one of those things that's going to stay, and in many ways is even required already. And Bridget, you can bring back up the panel if you don't mind. Talking about cleaning the bus, I got an email. We do seek out questions in advance, so this was wonderful. It came from Bob Weed, and he asked, what do you think is the biggest challenge to keeping the buses disinfected and safe on a daily basis? We also talked a little bit about the transmiss system, and he wanted to know what you like best about it. And then lastly, have you come across disinfecting products that comply with all the standards, is safe, highly effective in killing all microorganisms like viruses, bacteria, and fungi? So kind of rolling all those questions into one. I'm just going to open it up. Who wants to tackle it first? And then Dave, I'll come to you at the end to kind of give me your statewide perspective again.
I'll start off. I agree. I think the masks are going to go away eventually. Right now, we're still following the CDC guidelines. And we are during the summer here. We are, the driver and the students on the bus have to wear the mask. But we just, in Ohio here, we just let up on where if you have been vaccinated, that you don't have to wear your mask here at the school. So, but if anytime you're around students, whether you're a teacher or whatever, you have to wear your mask. What came to light right at the beginning was cleaning buses, okay, right at the beginning, right when this was going on, and everybody that I talked to was scrambling. Okay, what do we do? How do we do it? You know, again, I'm not sure about other districts, but I will say our district, our buses probably were not the cleanest buses out there. And, you know, we went out and bought handheld products. Drivers needed to, you know, put on their protective equipment. They go and they spray the buses down. Yes, some of them sprayed them a little heavier than others. Some of them didn't spray them at all. And trying to keep track of all that is a nightmare. One thing we did find out that some of the chemicals that were being used were deteriorating the flame retardant material on the buses. So of course we got to, you know, discontinue that. So right at the get-go, we had some issues with it. Now that we do have a program in place right now, and it seems to be working for us, because I may have mentioned this before, we had 0 cases of anybody contact tracing back to us, as that's where the bus word began. So we're pretty proud of that none of that happened here. Now, it's a chore with the sanitation of the buses. It's a chore. It's labor intense at times. And again, it's probably a lot of waste of chemical cleaning on there. So I'm working with a company right now out of Michigan, and it's a unit that's Transmist is the unit, and they do have a chemical that meets all the specifications. It's been, you know, it's been approved by the NHTSA and everything, and it's alcohol free. Doesn't break down your flame retardant on your buses. It gets rid of the mold and fungus and all the good, not the good stuff, but all the bad stuff. Again, this is a self-contained unit. It's mounted in the bus. There's not everything surface mounted, and there's like 10 sprayers in there. And I won't go into all the detail on it, but there's a certain sequence that the driver has to go through. So there's no accidental discharge of the unit while there's students on board. It's pretty much almost impossible to happen. I mean, I'll knock on wood when I say that. But in Ohio here, it has to be approved by the Highway Patrol. And we're in the process of getting that approved. And once that is approved, it will be approved. And once it's approved, we will be the first district in Ohio to have it. It's been approved in 13 other states. And
okay.
Yeah, I don't see Florida on there, but it's been approved in 13 other states.
Okay. Bill and Dan, anything you guys want to add, or Dave? And then I want to do a quick, I know we're kind of coming to the end, so I want to make sure we have time for you guys to give me one takeaway. Anything else you want to add, Bill, Harvey, or Dan, or Dave?
Dan, anything to add to that?
I'm good.
I would just add that, you know, the who, the how, and the when, and with what, right? I mean, we've been doing this for a year, and as Bill Andrexler said, we're still finding that maybe, you know, there's other products and other ways. So, yeah, that's the only thing. It's a good question, and it's a question that is not entirely answered yet.
Okay. David, anything?
I will add again, you know, we have a workshop session at the NYS conference in July on that very subject with a local BOCES health and safety person who did a study on this, and first study I've seen in terms of efficacy, and he'll present along with a vendor. Bill will actually moderate that, which will answer some of these questions and provide some options. You know, the whole question is, how often do we have to disinfect, and do we still need to continue to do it? You know, what should we use? Those are a lot of questions that are still being bantered around. So I think we'll just continue to monitor that whole subject. And, you know, the good thing is we're looking at cleaner buses now than we did pre-pandemic, right? I mean, that's one of the things I hope that'll stay beyond the pandemic era.
Very good. I'm going to ask Tony Civitello to come back on screen here. I want to thank our panelists and Dave so much for so much insight. I want to say quickly that one topic I wanted to get to, and unfortunately we didn't get to it, but we always cover so much ground. Bill Harvey had mentioned the other day when we did our dry run, how do I get my kids back on the bus? I'm going to use that as a tease for our next webinar. So hang on, I'll give you the date for that after we're going to go through the group here and give us our one takeaway. Dave, I'm going to give you first spilling because you always give me grief saying, oh, they all took all the good ones. So I'm going to let Dave Christopher go first with a takeaway. We'll go to Dan, Bill, and then I'm going to ask Tony to give us his final takeaway from today, and then I'll wrap it up. But Dave, what's one takeaway that you want folks here to maybe bring back to their staff or to their superintendent or their community?
Well, I think, the resilience that we've shown in this industry over the past year, the ability to call audibles and fix problems and, figure it out, is just beyond, understanding how people did this, because again, there was no playbook. So school transportation people do that. We're a unique industry where, we talked about this yesterday, Rick, where we can talk to professional from Florida, Ohio, New York, and we're all kind of similar in terms of our concerns and our issues, and a lot of our resolutions to problems we can learn from each other across state lines as well. So I appreciate everybody's hard work figuring out all of these issues over the past year, and you should be proud of what you do. I mean, it's something that has never been done before.
That's good. That's good stuff there. Thanks, David. Dan.
I'd just like to say, looking back over the last 5 or 6 years, I never thought we'd be in the position we are now, regardless of COVID, when it comes to technology. It's evolving and changing so fast of what is out there, and it's not as expensive as people think it is. Like actually, when I went to the assistant superintendent and the finance officer a couple of weeks ago saying, hey, I want to switch from the previous GPS to Zonar this next school year, for various reasons. They said, well, how much more is it going to cost me? And I said, well, it's about, X amount of dollars. And they're like, well, I don't know if we can do that. And I said, look, it's been 6 years since we went with a GPS company. And so that amount of money over 6 years is not that big of a deal. But what I'd like to tell everyone watching is you have to advocate for transportation, just like Mr. Harvey said. We're not the ones. We should be the ones dictating bell times, but unfortunately we're not. And I hear that more and more. The more districts I talk to. So try to advocate for your department and let them know, hey, and you can reach out to me and I'll be more than happy to show them and talk to them about how it has benefited and made our department transportation more efficient. And we get positive feedback from parents almost on a daily basis. So that's my takeaway.
That's super. Thank you so much, Dan. Bill and Exler.
There's a lot of takeaways. I mean, there's a lot, and I could be on for the next half an hour, which I won't do that. But main thing is, thank you, Transfinder. You've made some changes in the last year that would support and things. That's really improved. Whoever's gone on and not got on the Transfinder and used the community site, and you have that live chat, that live support there. That's great. And also too, putting all the products together like we are doing in Akron, finally putting them all together. And that's making my life a lot easier with everything in one basket. And my one last thing I would like to say, just God bless all of our men and women in uniform.
Amen. Second that. Mr. Harvey.
Two quick things. First one, I tried to go to mytransfinder.com the other day. I couldn't get in. And then I called my rep at Transfinder and I said, what? When did you change that? And so anyways, long story short, I am now on Transfinder Community and it's awesome. So come to find out, it changed back in October. That's how long since I've had to go for a tutorial. But anyways, good stuff. Thank you on that. My takeaway would be, there's been a lot of talk about what we take forward with us, things that we've learned in the pandemic. And my takeaway that I'd like people to take away is don't forget to go back to the basics. I've been out driving a lot. I drove a route every day for like 4 weeks straight. And some of the things I noticed with kids crossing and student behavior, and I thought to myself, I need to make that a focus next year to get back to basics, focus on student safety training, bus drills, driver training. We've been so caught up in the flurry of other things that the good job we did prior carried us through, but we need to get back to that. So don't forget to go back to the basics.
Very good. Thank you so much, Bill. Tony, close us out.
Well, I love that you guys are doing all takeaways, and I'm going to give you a takeaway. I'm not really sure if you guys, I know you guys talked about different things, but it's a takeaway that I've heard this last month. I sponsored this Entrepreneur of the Year at my college, Siena College, and the recipient for this year, you know what he said? He said, it's a family business. He talked about if you want your kids to continue the family business, don't go home and complain about the business, right? So I thought about that. You know, it really means, you know, my mom and dad had, you know, whatever jobs they could have. So I could attend college and so forth. So I'm very grateful that my family moved here when I was 9 years old. But, you know, my mom and dad never came home and complained about their job. They never did. You know, us kids, and you guys heard me hear about the little rooster and the big rooster. We had some fun another time. You know, I never complained about work because I never heard my parents complain about work. You guys, if you complain about things, your employees are also going to start realizing it's okay to complain. And I think it's something that I want to just remind everybody. I know it's very hard to find employees and drivers across the board. Check yourself. Are you doing that? Are your managers complaining? Because if those people are doing that, guess what? Well, then don't be surprised if your newest employee is almost now being the rooster, almost crows. And so just keep that in mind. I just want to, that's always my biggest takeaway.
That's
All
good.
right.
Well, their backstory on that real quickly was there was like 3 generations that had followed. There were 2 partners in this one business. One, the partner got out fairly early. No kids followed his footstep. The other partner, he's got 3 generations who have come up and taken over leadership. And his point was exactly what Tony just said. When he went home, he had a mentor who told him, hey, look, if you want your kids to get involved, then don't complain about the business. And there you go, 3 generations later, and it's still that. So that's a good story there, Tony. Thank you. So quickly, these webinars are rolling on, and we want them to be incredibly useful. And so we want you to share your stories with us at mystory@transfinder.com. That's whether you're a Transfinder client or not. Any tools that you are using that are working, any tips that we can pass along, we want to do that. So we may follow up with you and ask you to be on a webinar or be part of a white paper to help pass along those solutions. Because as we've all said this before, we are all in this together, and we want to share best practices. And then our next webinar is July 22nd, so please mark your calendars. I want to once again thank our panelists, Dan, Bill, and Bill. And David, thank you so much for your leadership. Really, it's just tough times like this really shows those leadership qualities. They just come right out. And all of you guys are leaders. So thank you. Thanks again to Tony. And I just hope you all have a good rest of your day. That's it for now.
Thanks for having us.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, everybody.
See you next month, guys.
Okay.